You're ready.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Gramoglia, and I am the president and CEO here at Woodland Pond. And this is my weekly update for a Tuesday. I've got several things related to what we have going on this week. And I think, let's see if we've got anything notable on the calendar for this week, which is the week of July, I guess started with the 10th. Looks like we've got really nothing too notable going on in terms of performances or anything, I guess probably because it's summer. We've got some nice weather, it looks like we've got for the week. So hopefully you get outside and enjoy. Today in particular is absolutely beautiful out. So definitely try to get outside and spend some time outside. And you should try to do that every day if you can this week. Outside does definitely have some healing powers and some powerful stuff. This week, or kind of coming up this month, we have some great things going on for the Alzheimer's Association fundraising. And again, just to kind of keep in mind, our goal for the Alzheimer's fundraising is the $15,000. The bulk of that we are expecting to be raised through the team sponsorships that each of us individually will be doing. So for example, my goal for my team is $500. So I will, hopefully recruit, donations through my friends, my family. So it's not going to be all through like the ice cream socials and things like that. It's sort of through the traditional routes of fundraising, because we're really trying to raise the awareness. I'm sure that you all saw the huge news this week that the Federal Drug Administration has authorized really the first notable drug to slow the onset of Alzheimer's. And the Alzheimer's Association actually was the #1 advocacy organization to get that drug approved through the FDA, which now means that Medicare and Medicaid will subsidize the cost of that medication. Doctors can begin prescribing that. And it's those kinds of things that we want to see and support. So coming up, we've got on next Tuesday, July 18th, we're going to do another ice cream social in the courtyard. And 50% of those proceeds are going to go towards the Alzheimer's Association. Tuesday the 25th, we've got an executive team breakfast for the executive team will be serving the breakfast. So we're going to have a breakfast open to everybody. We don't usually do breakfast here on campus. It's going to be an all-you-can-eat buffet, breakfast buffet, and we can help those that can't easily navigate a buffet. But this is going to be great. And it's going to be $10 a ticket. And we're going to do Secrets from the Unknown as a trivia contest as well while we have that breakfast. But mark your calendar for that on Tuesday the 25th for breakfast here on campus to support the Alzheimer's Association. And starting our actual partnership events with the Alzheimer's Association, a lot of you have asked those questions. On Wednesday, the 26th, Meg Boyce, who is the Vice President of Programs and Services with the Hudson Valley chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, is going to be here in the PAC at 2 o'clock to provide all of our community an overview of the Alzheimer's and how it impacts our society. And what kinds of support and resources the Alzheimer's Association has. So this is really their entree into explaining to you what the organization does and why it's so impactful, exactly what kinds of individual resources it provides to people that are dealing with Alzheimer's. So I really encourage all of you to attend. Another opportunity there for you. Okay, let's see. Moving on to the next topic. With composting. So we have 3 compost bins available to the residents here on campus. They are at the ends of the wings at North, Central, and South. Rob has asked to remind you, you should be keeping your compost in your refrigerator or your freezer until Wednesday night prior to the Thursday morning pickup if you can. That way, then you can put it in there on Wednesday night. It will reduce the amount of bugs kind of that accumulate there. You can dump them in there on Wednesday night prior to the Thursday morning pickup. kind of like what you would do with your garbage, right? So you usually wouldn't bring your garbage out until the night before the garbage man would come the next day. That will help us reduce the amount of bugs that are accumulating in those compost bins. Of course, the bugs are a natural part of composting. Some would say it's great for the compost. It really is. But if you don't want to have so many bugs, you put the compost in on Wednesday night before the Thursday morning pickup. A lot of people stick the compost right in the freezer and then bring it all down on Wednesday night. And Rob has reminded that that's a great idea. Okay. Jason has asked me to read a few things that came from the Chanticleer and thought that they were great reminders related to fire alarms and also Instacart and a couple of other things. So I'm going to go through that. Last Wednesday at 8 a.m., we had a fire alarm activation. And this happened to be on an incident that happened in the health center. Toast was burnt in the kitchen for assisted living. And so the fire alarm sounded at 8 a.m. This is what the Chanticleer said, and I will elaborate on this a little bit, but residents are reminded that the local fire chief has requested that when the fire alarm sounds, that unless you are in imminent danger in your location, so for example, you see visible flames, you see or smell smoke, you see or hear another imminent threat, that you remain sheltered in place. Meaning that unless you see some kind of a visible threat, that you stay where you are with your door closed. And that most importantly, when that fire alarm goes off and you're sheltering in place, that you keep our main phone lines clear. In other words, that you do not call the concierge desk or reception to find out what the fire alarm is about. And the reason for that is because concierge needs to be able to call out to the emergency services personnel. They need to be able to take calls from them. They need to be able to contact the executive team members. So they cannot be receiving phone calls from residents or making phone calls to residents about what the fire alarm is about. Our front desk staff and leadership staff must be able to be in free communication with first responders and emergency services personnel and cannot take your phone calls inquiring about the source of the emergency. We have an emergency notification system that will call you, will text you, and will email you with with details about the nature of the emergency and with instructions. So that's very important. A couple of years ago, Woodland Pond invested in an emergency notification system that will contact you automatically within 5 or 10 minutes of the alarm sounding to let you know what's going on. So you do not need to call, and you should not call. It's really, really important. You need to keep your phone hung up. We will contact you through this emergency alert notification system. So last week around 8:05, you should have received a phone call, a text, or an email to either your landline in your kitchen or wherever you have your phone, or to your cell phone. You might have received a text or an email or all of those things telling you what was going on. And that's how you're going to find out what the fire alarm was about. And all throughout this, that fire alarm is probably still going off. You will receive those instructions within 5 or 10 minutes of the activation of the alarm. In most cases, once we have confirmed the source and the location of the event. If last Wednesday you did not receive 2 such calls, the first one, which was notifying you of the location of the incident, and then a follow-up one notifying you that the event was then all clear, we need you to call concierge, and we will look into this for you because we want to make sure that we have your correct phone number, and we will add you to the system. I also want to note that we only have one fire alarm system. Many of you asked, well, if the event was in the health center, why did it go off in independent living? Or others have asked, if there's an event in independent living, why does it go off in the health center? And it's because we only have one fire alarm system. And so when it's a real event and not a drill where we're controlling where it sounds, when we have a real event, the alarm goes off throughout the entire building. We can't control that. And we also cannot control when it goes silent. Only the fire chief or their designee can silence the alarm. And sometimes the alarm can go off for a very long time, and we know that it is very loud and very disruptive. We cannot control that. So yes, in the event of an actual emergency, this is going to be a very loud alarm, and it's going to be going off for a very long time in some cases. We cannot control that. So the memo from last week in the Chanticleer goes on to say, more importantly, we are prohibited by law from silencing the alarm. This can only be done by the fire chief or their designee, and sometimes this can take a very long time. So again, just to reiterate the importance of the issues related to the fire alarm system. If you do hear a fire alarm, the most important thing, unless you are in imminent danger here at Woodland Pond, at the direction of the fire chief, is to shelter in place. That does a few things. It protects you, from any threat that might be out in the hallway or something like that. It also allows for emergency personnel to be able to get to the emergency without having a lot of people in the hallway. That was something that the fire chief really reiterated. They need to be able to get in the hallways. They need to be able to get in the stairwells without encountering a lot of people. And then the second thing is to please not come to concierge. Do not come to concierge. They need to be able to communicate with emergency personnel and not answer your questions. And please do not call concierge or reception because they need to, again, be making sure that those phone lines are clear. Okay. The next topic is related to grocery orders. So when you're calling and making grocery orders for delivery to this campus, you need to make sure that you're giving them your name and your apartment or cottage number. You also need to make sure that you're asking them to deliver them to inside the building. We are seeing that people are having grocery orders delivered here without names, without cottage or apartment numbers, and you're not asking them to make sure they bring the groceries in. So we're seeing groceries just left outside. We're seeing groceries left without names, without apartment or cottage numbers. So they're coming in and we have no idea who had Instacart orders or orders from ShopRite. That's a huge problem because the groceries come in and we have no idea who they're coming to. So please make sure that you're including instructions for the driver to bring them inside the building and making sure that you're including your name and your phone, either your phone number or your apartment number. Okay. I think that is that on Instacart orders. Okay. The last thing that I just wanted to mention was related to preparing for a power outage. So last week, before I took my long weekend to go to a baseball tournament in Ocean City with my son and my family, we had sent out an emergency alert related to weather. Now, of course, we're hearing lots of things about weather and it's extra hot and blah, blah, blah. We're in the summertime. It's thunderstorms. I know everyone seems like it's making it seem like it's extra hot and all these things, but we've had thunderstorms and severe thunderstorms forever. It happens. This happens in the summertime. We have to be prepared for power outages. And in Woodland Pond, there is a risk of power outages. We have had them very rarely. I mean, I think we've only ever had one actual power outage, and it was actually relatively brief. I think maybe 4 hours, and I actually think it was related to a snowstorm. I don't think we've actually, knock on wood, had a summer power outage, but if we do, you need to be prepared for that. Just as if you were in your primary residence before you moved to Woodland Pond. The health center is on emergency power, but emergency power is emergency power. It's not going to do everything. It's going to do essential things. It's going to provide essential items. It's going to provide access to us to be able to provide oxygen to folks that rely on oxygen for life-saving means. It's going to provide emergency power for certain outlets. so that we can run our electronic medical record and provide you medication dispensing for our nurses. It's going to provide emergency power to most of, but not all of our heating and ventilation and cooling. But it's not going to be everything. It's going to provide power for certain lighting, but not everything. Certain things in the kitchens, but not everything. And that's for the health center. In independent living, there is only very limited emergency power and not in the elevators. So you need to be prepared for that. There is no emergency power in the cottages. So you need to think about, what do I need to do to be prepared for an emergency power outage? You should have, if you live in independent living, some water, bottled water. You should have some food that doesn't require refrigeration. You should have medication that doesn't require refrigeration, hopefully. You definitely should be notifying concierge if you rely on electric for life-saving means. So if you live in independent living and you rely on power for oxygen, a CPAP machine, a BiPAP machine, or anything else, please contact concierge and make sure that we know that. We do maintain a list of residents that rely on emergency power, but you've got to let us know that, because in independent living, we wouldn't necessarily know that unless you tell us. The other thing that's very important in independent living is, if you do not live on a main floor and you cannot get up or downstairs, and you would need to get up or downstairs to evacuate the building, we need to know that. So let me say that again. If you live in independent living and you do not live on a main floor, and you would need to come up or downstairs to evacuate the building, but you cannot evacuate the building on your own because you can't get up or down the stairs on your own, we need to know that. So please call concierge and let them know. Because in the event of a power outage, the elevators are not on emergency power in independent living. And again, we maintain that list for concierge as well. So then that way, if we do have a power outage and we ever had to evacuate the building, you are the people that we would send emergency personnel or our staff to first to help you evacuate. So just be thinking about that. You should obviously have, emergency lighting that's battery powered. You should know where it is. I always recommend keep it under your kitchen sink with batteries. There are, lots of places that you can get those things if you don't have them. Actually, today is Amazon Prime Day. If you don't have, if you have Amazon, you can order them on Prime. Lighting little lamps or something. A lot of you bought lanterns a few years ago when we suggested that. You can buy batteries. Making sure that you have those things for the colder months, obviously blankets and things like that. But just be prepared for a power outage. This is the time to be prepared. It's certainly reasonable to think that we could have this, making sure that your cell phones are charged, all those kinds of things. I am around all week this week if anybody needs anything. All week next week as well. My calendar's pretty full this week, but if you need anything, I am around. I hope you have a great week, and I hope you get outside. Thank you.